With the convention just passed, Mark Rosewater just announced the 20 worst kind of keywords or mechanics that he made over the years. So in this one, I've seen a lot of comments when people have seen the post and stuff asking variations of, what's that? I don't remember that and stuff like that. So in this video, I'll be going over all 20, giving you a speed run in them all because I do Commander class where I go over them in more depth. So in this, I'll be giving pretty much 3 examples of each card keyword, going over them all in a very fast paced, so people can then just give a quick grasp of what they are and give my thoughts and opinions on some of them, not all of them. But before I go any further, a word from our sponsor, and the sponsor is my small little Etsy shop. I make t-shirts and hoodies with cool designs in multiple colours and sizes for people to enjoy. If you want something funny and cool that you're into Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or any form of TCG, these t-shirts are perfect for you because they're soft, they're colourful and they're kind of funny. So if you like me and what I do and you want to help out and support the channel, please go to my little Etsy store, it'll be linked down below, and buy yourself a nice little t-shirt or hoodie. So what is this list? This list is 20 of the worst abilities made in Magic the Gathering, or keywords, or whatever you would like to call them. These are made by Mark Rosewater, who is one of the lead designers, or the lead designer when it comes to Magic the Gathering. So let's start this list with
stickers.
These were literally in an unset, and I do kind of find it unfair that an unset is kind of in here because they are made to be a little bit fun, but these are legit little stickers that you can stick on your card and take them off that come in a card with multiple stickers on them. So there's like multiple names, multiple images on them and multiple abilities and stuff like that that you're able to put on these cards to make them slightly better and stuff like that. To be honest, this is the thing that because it is on the top 20, if I was working in Magic and someone went, let's do stickers, I would have been like, no. I don't know how this passed in general, unless people were thinking, Magic is a kids game, kids love stickers, unset's funny, kids love funny things, this is more for children. Even though realistically, Magic the Gathering is for like teenagers and the older crowd. But here is 3 beautiful card art with stickers on them.
Contortionist Otter Storm, Happy Dead Squirrel, Playable Delusionary Hydra.
Not gonna lie, I do kind of like the names of them, they are quite funny, the images are kind of cool, and a lot of examples of other Magic the Gathering cards and sets that have been made before.
Megamoth.
So a lot of people I've seen online are like, what is this? What is Megamoth? And then I actually had to look it up myself because I haven't even really seen Megamoth played that much, and when I did actually read it up, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. It is pretty much Morph with extra steps. It is just legit Morph, but it gets a 1/1 counter. So it's pretty much the exact same, but not much difference. But if you have some like hard scales or Dublin season, which is getting a lot of reprints, it's kind of cool that your creature enters with a +2/+2. But again, I would rather have Morph than Megamorph, especially because there's not many cards with Megamorph. But if you've never seen any, here are some on screen.
Death Mist Raptor, Hidden Dragon Slayer, Salamgar Assassin.
They're not the worst, they're not the best, it's why I see that they are potentially here because Morph is quite played and Megamorph is not, but if it is, I do see why it's number 19.
Companion.
This one I would like to not argue on, but I can see why it's here, but at the same time I'm like, I did like it. When it comes to this, these are cards that can be your 101st card, your second commander, if the rules are met. On each of these companion cards is a kind of rules text of like you need odd or even cards or stuff like that for this to be able to be your companion card. I did like the idea of it. I do like some of the cards in it, but I wish they added a few little extra rules. For example, being like, if this isn't your companion, it can be in your 99 without any other people giving out, mainly because one of them is banned, but only banned as your commander. But they couldn't ban it just being the commander, so they banned out the entire card itself. But if you've never seen any of these, there is great art just like
Gyarda, Doom of Depths, Gigantha, the Wellspring, Lutri, the Spell Chaser.
They also did a variation that I've collected all of them in a beautiful styled art, so if you've ever seen any of them, they are so pretty and I'm happy I got them all.
Haunt.
This I like, but it was done kind of slightly wrong. Haunt is a weird ability that I've actually never seen played, where if a creature dies or the spell activates or whatever you do, you pick an opponent's creature and that creature is pretty much haunted. And then when that creature goes, the second ability goes. It's a 2-for-1 card thing. It's kind of like those cards that are at the side that have the half and half, but the other half needs a certain circumstance to go off. If you've never seen any of these haunt cards, here are some on screen.
Graven Dominator, Ors of Pontiff, Seize the Soul.
I think they actually should bring back haunt cards, maybe name it something different and give it a new variation of style. I think there should be a haunt counter, and it's like whenever this creature dies, put a haunt counter on a target opponent's creature, and then when that target opponent's creature card, something like, oh, you get to put a -1/-1 counter on a different creature, or you are able to put like the haunt counter on a different one, or your creature comes back. Variations like that, mainly because it's kind of like if your creature dies and has a haunt and someone has a creature that's really powerful, you're like, I want people to try and aim for that creature, put a haunt counter on it, and depending on what the card said, the haunt kind of happens. I think it should go to exile until the card has resolved as well, but that's just me.
Annihilator.
This I can see why is on the list, but at the same time, as someone that thinks Eldrazi are one of the best creature types in the game, the cutest, which I get a lot of kind of not nice comments for, and I think one of the best like cards overall, Annihilator is a great ability if done right. I do think it is really, I've played Annihilate before and I've seen opponents just not be happy with what I've done or what I've said or anything like that. But if you've never heard Annihilator, they're usually on Eldrazi, and here are some examples.
Flayer of Loyalties, Hideous Taskmaster, Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre.
This I don't see as the worst, I see it as the most kind of that annoying level that a lot of people don't like it. And because a lot of people don't like it, they voice their opinion, and that's why it's on this list. But to be honest, I do think Annihilator is good on a certain amount of cards. I think if there is more than 20 cards with Annihilator, it's like that overdone stuff that everyone will use. I do think it is a great ability overall though.
Devoid.
Now going from one Eldrazi ability to another, there is Devoid. This is very simple. This just means no matter the color of the card, it is also counted as colorless. This mainly helps for cards that just go do X damage for each colorless card or something like that. They're not very well used. Most people I've seen that have Devoid cards don't even know Devoid's on it. They just use the card for its actual abilities. But if you've never seen a Devoid card, here are some on screen.
Inverter of Truth, Kozilek's Return, Sire of Stagnation.
Now that we're done with Eldrazi, there is another ability that gets you a second commander, which to be honest I'm kind of shocked is on this list, and that is called
Partner.
This card pretty much just says if there are two cards that have the word partner, you're allowed to have them both as your commander. This makes that you're able to have 3 color decks instead of 2 or 2 color decks instead of 1, and they usually work together and you get different variations. Now again, there was a thing I seen years ago of Mark Rosewalker saying he didn't like this, but then added in partner with and then blank card. So that means it can only be partnered with that other card. So for example, it will be partnered with X and partnered with Y, and they work together. Instead of going, here are 10 cards that all say partner, and then you get to pick and choose the 2 you want. Now I can see this being on this list mainly because of one thing and one thing only. Some of these are absolutely broken. It is very difficult to go, here are 10 variations of 10 partners, plus then swapping them around makes a very large number of partners you can have, and then some of them together are terrible, possibly even counterintuitive, and then some are absolutely bonkers and broken. But if you haven't seen any partners, here's some on screen now.
Bruised Harl, Boris Herder, Ishai, Ojutai Dragon Speaker, Ludovic, Necro Alchemist.
When it comes to partners, I do think it was done, but I think originally it should have been partnered with X and partnered with Y instead of just partner on its own.
Miracle.
This is kind of funny because they already have a Miracle commander that just came out, and now it's saying it's one of the worst. It is a bit to me, but at the same time I understand why. Miracle is a keyword, and they do, like it or not, still have to put it in the game, or still will put it in the game. If you don't know what Miracle is, there's pretty much an alternative cost on the card that if you draw it that turn, you're able to play it for that cost. Now the only problem is the amount of people I've heard, I've never actually seen it, people say they'll draw the card, put it into their hand, then look at the card, and then be able to play it saying this is the card they've drawn, but some people might, when it's in their hand, pick their second or third card and slide it across and go here and pay the Miracle cost. With Miracle, it's quite easy to cheat if you don't pay attention to what your opponent's doing. If they look at it and have it in their one hand and play it, then it's kind of fair. But if they put it in their full hand, they'll possibly be able to do like a sleight of hand trick that's not very difficult to learn, to be able to pick the Miracle card and just say it's the card they drew this turn. But if you've never seen any Miracle cards, here's some on screen.
Bonfire of the Damned, Revenge of the Hunted, Temporal Mastery.
Then finally, when it comes to Miracle cards, some of them are still playable even at their full mana cost, but a lot of variations, you're paying the Miracle cost, we'll say it'll be 2. For a counterspell, for example, there might not be one or there isn't one, but you might have a counterspell in your deck for, or not in your deck, you might have a counterspell for 2, that's better. There's too many Miracle cards that the normal cost and the Miracle cost is still not worth it because of how power creep's working. There is the card's ability written on a new card that is cheaper or has extra benefits.
Forecast.
When it comes to this ability, I think, I cannot remember, for Foretold, I think it's the old version of Foretold is the best way to be able to explain this. This is pretty much you're able to play half the card from your hand and keep it in your hand, but pay the cost on the card and they get to see the full card of what it is. So it's kind of like Foretold, but it's also not kind of like Foretold. It is, you're paying to use half a card. It's kind of like Foretold and that dual cards where it's half and half kind of mixed together, where it's pretty much like, oh, I'm going to play half of it but keep the card in my hand and then play the other half and then do that. You kind of it's a weird ability, but if you've never seen it, because I've never seen it until I actually made this video, here are some examples on screen now.
Govern the Guildless, Pride of the Clouds, Proclamation of Rebirth.
This I kind of can see, and like kind of like if they done it with rooms or something like that, that you can only pay the lower cost from the hand and you get to keep it and stuff like that. I do think this is an ability that they will never reprint and never will use it ever again.
Initiative.
So this is a weird one in my opinion. This is one that they should not have done, but also they did. It seems to be a weird love child of Monarch and the dungeons together. Now, I loved the dungeons when they came out. I actually have a pure dungeon deck where you go through one of the dungeons and you just keep looping as fast as you can, and it's one of my favorite decks that I've ever made. I do think that this variation of it is very weird, but if you've never seen it, it's pretty much a kind of Monarch thing, but every time you get the Monarch or the initiative, you're able to then go through the layers again. Here are both of the cards on screen now.
Whenever one or more creatures a player controls deal combat damage to you, that player takes the initiative. Whenever you take the initiative and at the beginning of your upkeep, venture into Undercity. If you're in a dungeon, advance to the next room. If you're not, enter Undercity. You can take the initiative even if you already have it.
I really did like the enter the dungeon ability and some of the cards were really good. I think they should have just stuck with that and added a 4th or possibly 5th and 6th, but they had to change it to a weird monarchy ability version of it, which then kind of not ruined it but made it not as fun, in my opinion.
Cleave.
This ability when it came out I loved, but I seen it from the start that it had a huge flaw. 2 things. One, I do find that the cleave cost ability is a good idea and a good mechanic. However, with the amount of cards and the amount of broken cards there are, the only way to make these cards good is to, if you pay the cleave cost, make them absolutely game ending and broken, which, to be honest, a lot of them were not, and that's what was the problem. There is like an extra turn one, which I have an extra turn deck, and I'm like, oh, that an extra turn card, I'm excited. But I would rather pay the same amount of mana for just a card that has an extra turn, that doesn't make me lose the game at all, and then makes me be able to put it back into my library or something like that. So that was the problem with that in my opinion. There was also like searching for basic lands and stuff like that, and I did find there's just way more better, just pay out straight, no extra pays or cuts or anything like that to be able to pay just straight out for a better card. But if you've never seen any of these cards, here are some on screen now.
Alchemist's Gambit, Dig Up, inspired idea.
Not gonna lie, I do like this ability and I think this ability is great. It was just done wrong. And by wrong as in they just made the same cards that they previously had with extra steps.
Unmemorable.
Number 9 is probably the funniest because I've actually seen on Reddit and stuff like that people going, I don't know this ability, what does this ability does? Blah 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 blah. It is not a single ability, it is multiple abilities. It is abilities pretty much that are unrememberable. People that have never played some of these that have already been told, like the forecast and stuff like that, could have potentially been in this section of area. To be honest, from the top of my head, there's no card abilities that I can think of, but that's the whole point. The whole point is that they've made them and no one remembers them at all. Horsing or the horse kind of thing could be the only one, but people tend to enjoy that, so I don't see it being on this list at all, but potentially it could have been in this unforgettable or unrememberable.
Epic.
Epic is a weird ability, but I decided that I'm just going to get the flavor text of it and let you read it yourself.
Epic. For the rest of the game, you can't cast spells. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, copy this spell except for its epic ability.
Not gonna lie, I have used one of these. I've used the blue one, but it went with the deck. So these cards are really weird, not the best, but I do love the idea of them. But I think it should have been a thing that you're able to just have your extra turn. It'll be something like it procs at the beginning of your upkeep, but then you get to play normally. I think the biggest downside of this is that you're not able to play anything else for the rest of the game, so it's just like, my turn, the thing happens, end turn. That's pretty much the boring part of it, but there's only 5 of them, so I can see them just waiting for people to forget they ever existed.
Enduring Ideal, Eternal Dominion, Never-Ending Torment, Undying Flames, Endless Swarm, Fateful Hour.
This ability, I could see the idea, but the execution is not good. When it comes to commander players especially, if you have pretty much 10 or less life, most of the time people go, do you know what, I'm just going to boop you out. So having an ability that if you have 5 or less health, it gets an additional little benefit is not good, especially since most of these cards are just like, the creature gets +2/+2. I would rather spend the 3 mana to give all creatures +2/+2 and still be at more than 5 health. So the ability itself is not good, and the fact that it only procs if you have 5 or less health is absolutely terrible in my opinion as well. But if you've never seen any of these cards, here they are on screen.
Courageous Resolve, Faith's Shield, Throbbing Doomsayer.
This I can see why is on the list. It is not good at all in any form of commander or any form of other people like modern and stuff like that I've seen people play. It's usually I want to end the game as fast as possible, or I want this person to go as fast as possible, or if the card's on the field and you see that they need 5 or less health, you're planning on making sure that they're going nowhere between 1 and 5. You're making sure they go from 6 to 0 no matter what. Even if it's something like they get +1/+1, you're like, nope, that can screw me over some form of a way, not doing it. I've never seen any of these played. I did not know they were a thing until I've actually made this video, so it's cool, but that's what I like about these. I'm also learning.
Day/night.
Not gonna lie, when it comes to this, in my personal opinion, the worst thing about this ability is the song that starts off just saying day and night. Whenever I see these cards, that song just pops into my head. This I can see because a lot of people don't play werewolves because they're weak, because of the way the night and day works. So they tried to fix it. I will give it to Wizards that they tried to fix it. It just didn't work out for them. Werewolves are still not really played, other than people that love werewolves. There's no kind of perfect master CDE or CEH deck that people play with werewolves in them. This ability was them trying to fix it and it not working. But if you've never seen these cards, here they are on screen. So now we're on to the worst 5 of Magic the Gathering, starting off with
Radiance.
This is a weird ability. It pretty much just says
Radiance, target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it.
This, to my opinion, does not really seem like a keyword on an ability. It just seems to be extra text slapped on the card that they could have just done and eventually did. But if you've seen none of the cards, here are some on screen.
Bathe in light, bright flame, cleansing beam.
I personally don't know why they're so pretty much low on the list. I don't know why they're in the top 5 of the worst. It just seems to be a little bit extra added on. It should not have been a keyword, it should have just had the text on the card, but I don't know why it's got such a hatred in Mark's heart. But if anyone has any ideas, please let me know in the comments down below.
Recover.
This is another one of those abilities that I could see why, but it didn't work out for them. When it comes to this, they're trying to keep the game up and new and people excited for stuff, so they keep trying to add in new keywords, new abilities, new stories and stuff like that, and sometimes it's going to fail, and I understand why. This is one of those times. If you don't know what recovery does, it goes
Recover, cost. When a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay, cost. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, exile this card.
Pretty much it's one of those things that if a creature dies, you're able to go, cool, I'm going to pay the mana to put this back into my hand. But it's not really executed that well. It is, you put the mana down to play a creature, someone destroys that creature, and then you don't have enough mana to put the thing back into your hand, and then it gets exiled. Plus, with the amount of cards they've released, like Reanimate and how cheap it is, and very different variations to get stuff back from your graveyard, it's pretty much cost effective to just let the creature go into the graveyard and then you get it back with any other form of means. I've seen so many cards that just go get every land, put it on the field, or get a creature, and then when you get that creature you are able to then, when that creature enters, you're able to get another creature from the graveyard, and so on and so on. But if you've never seen any of these cards, here are some on screen.
Controvert, Garza's Assassin, resize.
But now I'm excited to go on. We're on the number, we've got 3 left to go. Starting off with
Sweep.
I did not know this was an ability, I did not know existed. There's not that many cards of them, so I can understand. They're pretty much very old cards, but here are some on screen now.
Barrel down Sokinzan, charge across the Arba, plow through Rado, sink into Dakanuma.
Looking at these cards and reading them, I can really see why these are possibly not in the top 3, I'd maybe say 5 or 10, but I can see why these are never going to be reprinted again.
Gotcha.
This I find weird at number 2, again because it's an unset in my head. I'm like, it's not serious, don't take it serious. But then reading through the ability and seeing the kind of, especially with everything going on the last little while, how Magic the Gathering players, not all of them, but a large amount, will react and stuff like that, I can see why this ability is not a good thing. I do think there should be a variation of it in a normal game, but instead of saying gotcha, there should be a very weird, there should be a card that's supposed to say a 6/6 with trample, but it's like whenever another 6/6 dies, you're able to get it back to your hand or something like that, and it's called a gotcha. But that's because I think that would be a cool ability if they put it in, but as an unset with the way the cards went and stuff, if you've not seen them, they're hilarious. Here's some on screen.
Creature guy, deal damage, kill, destroy.
I do see why people did not like this, because I could picture someone absolutely snapping, going, I didn't say that, I didn't say that at all, like, you're lying, and then having a tantrum over it, especially in an ungame, which makes less sense in my head. But I do see that there could be a real Magic the Gathering set, like a normal one that's not an unset, with an ability somewhat like it, where it's, instead of saying you said these words, if a certain circumstance was met on the field, you're able to get it back to your hand or on the field, depending on the card itself.
Friends with others.
And then number one. Number one, I didn't know what it really did. It took me a while to look up, and the amount of hatred for this ability is quite huge, and it is, luckily it's only the really, really old cards or the cards, and an ability that's not ever used or I've ever seen, but I understand why. It's just way too complicated, giving such a headache and causing way too much trauma or problems for the way the game works. If you've never seen any of the cards, here are some on screen.
Banalish Infantry, Nilothni Dragon, Old Fogey.
But to be honest, looking through the list of abilities and stuff, I could see why this is number one without a shadow of a doubt. So if you think any of these are wrong, or if you don't like any of the abilities, let me know in the comments down below, or if there's any kind of ability that you think should be on here. When it comes to these, I agree with most of them. I say if I made my own 20 list, I would be moving some around, especially the unsets. I find unset to be a non-serious version of Magic the Gathering, so I think if it's really anything to do with complicating the game or annoying people, it should be higher up on the list, because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's an unset, no big deal, but I can see from his point of view working for the game, pretty much what caused him the most headaches. This would be them on the list. I do still think number 2 should not be number 2, but that's just me. When it comes to these, a lot of it seems to be more balancing issues of them trying stuff out and it not working and then them regretting that it didn't work out for them, but I can see the problems and stuff it's caused. So if there's any that you think they should do further in the future, let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like and subscribe and do all that YouTubey stuff we always ask for. If you like me and what I do, please like and subscribe and do all that other stuff. And if you like this video, I have a previous video on Magic the Gathering here, a playlist of Magic Gathering stuff I do here, and a subscribe button here, and I will see you all in the next video.